Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast here. If you're watching on our YouTube channel or on the video player on the Wolverine.com, coming to you in a recorded episode this week, not live like we typically are. I have a couple things to get out of the way. But we will discuss spring game this Saturday. We've got a lot to talk about with quarterback battle. We've got the transfer portal officially opening this week. Could be some notable things there with players both in and out of the program. We'll discuss that and also whatever else is on our mind as we go through each position group heading into Saturday's spring game. But before we get into it, I want to let everyone know we are brought to you today by the Wolverine Magazine's National Championship Edition. Now the 2024 Wolverines. We'll get our first look at them on Saturday, but it's never too late to get your keepsake edition of our national title book available as a soft cover magazine or a hardback book. Again, over 140 full color pages of everything from last season, whether it be the game balls from each contest, the road to 15-0, there's a pretty cool infographic in there, kind of the 4-year climb that it was from the COVID season to that national championship for Michigan football. So it's all there and it's all covered. A lot of guys put a lot of hard work into it. We have plenty still in stock for you guys at both the soft cover and hardcover edition. So head on over to thewolverineondemand.com, get your copy of that today, and you'll be holding on to that. Some of you guys might hold it like a teddy bear as you sleep each night for the rest of your days or into the foreseeable future. So be sure to get your copy of that today. Fellas, somehow we have made our way to mid-April. We are, as we record this, 5 days out from the Michigan football spring game now, and I'm just excited to see football. I don't know what it's going to look like. I suspect there's going to be a little more juice to this one than the last few, given that there are a lot of unknown commodities on the roster, but excited to get back into it. A big week, really a big few weeks when you talk about our first look at this team and then NFL draft next week as the program is out to set a record. So welcome back, fellas.
My big question is, what's the format going to be? Is it going to be like it was last year? Is it going to be a game? Have they hinted to that? Have they talked about that? Has anybody heard anything? Have you guys heard anything?
Feels like it's going to be a game based on they split the team in half, Maize versus Blue. So Wink on one side, Campbell on the other.
Yep. Going to be fun. And the weather's supposed to be nice, at least preliminary. These weather guys don't really know a whole hell of a lot outside of 2 days. But I know a lot of people making plans to go. We will absolutely be there, and I can't wait, fellas. I love hearing the pads, and it doesn't matter. I remember my dad and I made this an annual event when I was in school and for many years after that. And, the best part was when they used to let the kids on the field after the game and they were throwing balls on the field. And it was great. Now, of course, you probably have to pay for that. If you want to throw a pass to your buddy, it's probably going to be $15 to go to the collective or something like that. But it is what it is. It's a sign of the times. More than anything, I'm excited to watch the quarterbacks. I remember one year, everybody was waiting to see what John Navarre did, and he was absolutely terrible. And Scott Loeffler said, well, it wasn't the way the quarterbacks coach at the time. Well, it wasn't what we expected or hoped, but John Navarre came out and he had a pretty good year no matter what. So regardless, rather. So anxious to see what Alex Orji does and some of these other guys. And hopefully when that portal opens, guys, shortly before that, Michigan keeps all their guys and adds a few. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks for us.
Yeah, I went as a kid too. Growing up, you get the picture with the cheerleaders. You get your hat signed by a backup fullback. I think that's who signed mine. I don't even remember the guy's name, but very cool to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see a lot of families out there. It's free, so you get that. You get a little more space than you would when there's 110,000 people packed in there. But should be good. Yeah, but CB, you're like Brady Hoke, where you like to hear football. Is that?
I do. It's exactly right. And he was right, though. And like those first couple teams, he said, I don't hear it. I'm not hearing football. And, you could tell, that offensive line it's not like it is now. And there's a difference between a national championship contender and a good football team. And he had a good football team that first year, right? But, man, when those guys are getting after it and you can hear those pads and you can hear the crunch from up in the press box, it's a little bit different. And they still have a lot of those guys, Clay, and Anthony. It's just, there's still a ton of talent on this football team.
Yeah, University of Michigan, the only place where the word football is not only a noun, but also a verb. So I think you have Jim Harbaugh to thank for that. Yeah, as the graphic said on the screen, this will be interesting too. The first time I believe the Michigan spring game has ever been nationally televised. It'll be on Fox. Jason Benetti, the new voice of the Tigers, will be on the call for that, as he was for the Ohio State spring game over the weekend. Not sure. Do we know who's doing color for that? Is it Jake Budd? Is it? I don't
I
recall
would assume
seeing
Joel Klatt, right? It's Joel Klatt.
It is Joel Klatt. That's right. I do remember that now. So that'll be a lot of fun. Adds a little juice to it. Adds a little spice to it. You know, if we're going down spring game recollection road here, I think the first one I was at was 2015. I was working for the other side at the time and not credentialed yet. So I'm in the stands with a notepad and I'm writing stuff down. And this is before Jake Rudock had gotten on campus. So you know, the big similar in a lot of ways where we're sitting there going, well, who the heck is the quarterback going to be? Not really a logical guy on the roster right now. And well, I think this room, you know, I don't know if this room is in any better shape than that one was going into that season. So I guess that's a good segue into where I wanted to start. And it's the quarterback position. Now, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, well, you let the guys battle it out and, you know, they'll just get someone in the spring when the portal opens. And transfer portal finally opens here on Tuesday, April 16th. It'll be open until April 30th. And again, you could add guys after that. It's just you have to be in the portal. But, you know, we talked about this a little bit last week. But when you look at what might be out there for them, I don't know that there's going to be this, you know, when you look at the transfer portal, I don't know if there's going to be anything that's more than a marginal upgrade to the room that they have right now. I really do think the more and more we get, it's become more and more apparent as, and this is where, again, you'd take this trade-off 10 out of 10 times, but by playing football into the early stages of January, you missed the window that a lot of these other programs had. And then, of course, JJ McCarthy had a decision to make. So it kind of leads you where I want to start by saying this. I think there can be a quarterback that gets you to 9-10 wins on this roster already. But to a certain extent, it does kind of feel like when you look at how they've recruited quarterbacks the last few years, taking Jaden Davis out of it, because I think he's kind of a non-factor this year, at least in terms of being a viable option to start. It kind of feels like when you look at what's come before Davis, what you see on the roster right now is kind of, I don't want to sound too harsh, but the Bills kind of come and due on it, right? Because I don't know that there is a natural successor there. But what do you guys feel about where we're at with this quarterback situation?
Yeah, you hope that there's a guy out there who's in a battle right now, and maybe like a Jake Rudock, and I've said this many times at Iowa, okay, it looks like he's getting passed over, and he's still a good quarterback, so he can help you, and he can be the guy. And I think you're going to see that in a lot of quarterback rooms. Now, there are going to be two things there, right? You're going to have other schools telling these guys, hey, you're still in a battle, and we're going to go into fall, and it's going to be one of you two guys, and you both have a great shot, even if it's not true, right? And I think Jim Harbaugh did that at times where he's like, okay, we're going to go into spring or into fall. And I think most of the time it was true, though. For example, Cade McNamara was ahead of J.J. McCarthy coming out of spring, and he was ahead of him through a good portion of the fall until J.J. came out and took it in the last couple of weeks of camp there, and then in that Hawaii game. So, but you have to hope, guys, in my opinion, because I just don't think there's a championship level quarterback on this roster, and I hope I'm wrong. You know, it wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong, but to me, it's, and what I wrote the other day is it's not a luxury to have a very good quarterback at Michigan. It's a necessity. And if you look at the top quarterbacks, the top programs throughout the country, it's very rare that you don't have a guy who is really, really good, right? Alabama, even Jalen Milroe became a good quarterback by the end of the year, even though he started off and was a little bit shaky. So to me, they've kind of been left in a bit of a quandary here, because now if you go out and get another quarterback, does that mean all of your other quarterbacks are going to hit the portal as well? You know, it's dicey. So there have been rumblings about Kyle McCord, you know, and like, will he get back in the portal, and would he come to Michigan type of thing? I don't see that. And I don't think he's the answer. I felt watching his press conferences before the Michigan game last year that this isn't a kid that's going to be able to step up in that Michigan game and beat Michigan at Michigan. Now, you know, he had a couple bad passes there that prevented him from doing that. So, and you know, who knows if it's a realistic option anyway, but to me, it's got to be somebody that, you know, is going to be the guy. So I'm with you in that respect, Anthony. Is that guy out there? I guess we're gonna have to wait and find out.
Yeah, and I think with the craziness that's going to ensue over the next couple weeks, I mean, there are going to be some pretty good options that either come available and then you reach out, or that you kind of know are going to come available. And I mean, Kyle McCord went to Syracuse to start, right? But are there going to be guys like that go back in or go in for the first time? Guys like, that even may be slated to start at their school that have heard, hey, Michigan may, be interested if you enter the portal, and they realize that Michigan's a better school for them or program in general. So that could happen as well. I'm just more curious than anything to see who goes in, who they target, that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to watch. You look around the country, like I agree, Chris. I think that coaches are doing this and, kind of going to play this up where you're in more of a battle than maybe you even are. I heard from somebody who was at Alabama practice over the last few weeks that Milroe may not even be the best quarterback on that team. So there are going to be guys pushing, and let's say they say, oh, we're sticking with Milroe. This is just one example. I mean, this is, happens around the country. And then somebody else behind him enters the portal who may actually end up being better than the other guy. And Rudock, probably not better overall than CJ Beathard when he left, but, it was pretty comparable, and the talent around him at Michigan, I think, suited him pretty well. And he had a great year in 2015. So yeah, we may see a Alex Malzone versus Shane Morris type of battle on Saturday. But it doesn't necessarily mean those are the only guys that are going to be on the roster. I'm predicting a low-scoring game. I know we'll get to it in a little bit, but I'm predicting 10-3 or something like that, 10-7. That'd be my prediction.
Does Malzone have any eligibility left?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Maybe. I mean, you have guys out there now that are – there's a tight end at Miami that's it's his 9th year in college or something like that. I don't know how that math works, but yeah, and I think it's interesting when you bring up the point of some of these coaches across the country who are maybe letting guys, leaving the door open for other guys to still be in a battle, so you maintain the balance or the chemistry of the quarterback room, whatever it is. I think that probably applies more to a place like USC or Ohio State, who also have 5 guys that are competing for position, but a couple of them are 5-star recruits, and you've got one that the collective paid a bunch to transfer in and all those types of things. So it's a little bit different of a situation. I mean, to me, if there's a 1-year stopgap available, I'm totally cool with that. From their perspective, this is a quarterback room that's filled out by a senior who is a former walk-on in Davis Warren, a 7th-year guy in Jack Tuttle, and then 2 juniors in Alex Orji and Jaden Denegal, where, if the light doesn't come on now, I don't know that it is for them. So, outside of Jaden Davis, who we think is more of the longer-term play, if one of those guys hits the portal because you add a 1-year stopgap that's going to give this team the best chance to win a national title or compete for a national title, I do it. And I have 0 issues with that. So from that perspective, I mean, right now, Chris, it sounds like if we're just going by what's at the top of the depth chart right now, it sounds like if there was a game, if this was Fresno State on Saturday instead of Team Maize versus Team Blue, kind of seems like Alex Orji would be the guy. Is that what we're led to believe right now?
Yeah, 100%. And they're hopeful that he can be a Jalen Milroe type, right, is exactly what they're saying. So, and when you're hoping to be a Jalen Milroe type, it means he's got a long way to go still as a passer. We know what he is as an athlete, right? I think he's got better instincts, especially running, than, for example, a Joe Milton, right? And everybody wants to make comparisons, the size and everything else. But, Joe Milton may well have been a better passer. And, it's kind of scary to me. And Joe Milton, you're right. Thrower. Yeah. And that became, and Joe got better to his credit, right? He's going to be a 6th round guy maybe. So, but he was never that guy where you thought, okay, this is the guy that's going to lead us to a Big Ten championship. At least I never got that impression. And the fact that, they basically made that decision in a spring, way back with Josh Gaddis, we can talk about, that's a completely different topic, but I don't want him to do that this time. I think you've got too good a defense here and you don't want to waste it, right? You've got too many good other pieces. You've got good running backs. I think you've got an elite tight end. You've got solid receivers that I think a couple of them can be really good. Still need to go out to the portal and get one. And I think that's what their plan is, if they can. And then a kicker. But to me, this is the biggest piece, fellas. All you got to do is have a good piece there. And I think you've got a Big Ten contender. I really do, because that defense is so good. And as long as they stay healthy, depth is going to be an issue as well. You're certainly never going to, I don't think you're ever going to have the depth that you had on that national championship team again. That was unbelievable. And I'm just feel fortunate to have been able to see it. But you can still compete for a title, fellas. You can still go down there with a good quarterback and beat Ohio State and Columbus with that defense. We've seen it if you're more physical, which they have been the last 3 years. So we'll see. But I am anxious to see how Orgy plays on Saturday. I hope they make him live a little bit, and I hope they let him throw quite a bit so we see what they have out there.
Yeah, Orgy is interesting. Could he be a Jalen Milroe type, lose to Texas in game 2, come back, lead his team to the playoff? But then you even think of it in like this comparison, and it actually is one that I talked to Alex Orgy about before the national championship game, and he said that Milroe was a guy he watched throughout last season, not just leading up to the Rose Bowl. So it's definitely a comparison that's worthy of being examined. But he talked about, or when you look at Alex Orgy to Jalen Milroe comparison, the path Michigan has back towards competing for a national championship this year is going to be through more tough games. Like you're not going to get Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. If you get there, you have to go at Ohio State, you play Oregon, you play Texas, you go at Washington. Like you're going to be in some of those games like a Michigan, Alabama of last year, and not saying that either team are going to be that good, but where you looked on one side and JJ McCarthy could make all the plays when he had to in that game. Jalen Milroe, they didn't really trust him on 3rd and 8. They didn't throw much in those downs when you needed to get, a first down and keep the offense on the field. They made plays, but it just felt like Alabama was kind of playing a little bit with at least maybe half a hand tied behind their back with Jalen Milroe compared to what Michigan had in J.J. McCarthy. Leads to another discussion of, well, no one's going to be J.J. McCarthy. So it's a tough thing to think through before a year. I do think Alex Orgy has potential. He does something really well, and that's running the football. And there's something to be said about that. Like he has an element to his game that is really strong, and he's obviously improved as a passer. I mean, his teammates have been pretty adamant about that. So it'll just be kind of interesting. I agree. I'm excited to see what he does on Saturday, but also, would think that maybe they give some other guys a look here in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Something last point on the quarterback position. I think that what's kind of maddening when you listen to the national discussion about JJ McCarthy as an NFL draft prospect is they make it sound like he was running the offense at a service academy. And then, they didn't trust him to throw. They didn't give him the opportunity to throw. And Michigan's conservative and all that. And I think we know that from what we watched with him, yes, you can get by on being a game manager at Michigan. We've seen Cade McNamara do it. We've seen Wilton Spate do it. We've seen other guys kind of do that in the past. But, Chris, you're going back to your original point, like the level of play that you got out of JJ McCarthy helped take Michigan to the next level and not the other way around. So, being able to make, the criteria that they lay out, being able to make every throw in the playbook, being able to move the chains, being able to convert 3rd downs, lead scoring drives.
Protect the ball, right? More than anything, protect
football.
The ball. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're able to do all those things, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape next year. And the way that Ohio State is playing, because again, as fun as it would be to come out guns blazing in week 2 and knock off Texas, you want to be best later in the year, in October, in November. And I really do think the way that Ohio State kind of wants to play ball this year, or the way they're building themselves, might lend it to being in a little more of a rock fight with them than you have been in the past. And I think that could, that could not favor Michigan, but when it comes to having a bit of a drop off in quarterback play, when you're talking about having more of a smash mouth style of offense with a quarterback that's also more of a threat to run the ball, we'll see. It's going to look different, but I still think that they might have something there. Let's move to the rest of the portal before we get into these position groups heading into the spring game. I mean, what else should we be looking for? It feels like they can probably afford to add at wide receiver. There's only 5 scholarship guys on the roster there. Linebacker, there's some depth. Cornerback, you could afford a little more depth. I think, Chris, you've heard that maybe kicker is something that they look at as well. I mean, when this portal opens on Tuesday, what are some position groups we should maybe be looking for?
Yeah, wrote a column about this after speaking to some people close to the program a few days ago, where, okay, first things first, right? Everybody's like, well, you can't tamper. There's no such thing anymore because you've got agents working for these kids that are reaching out to coaches all the time. And if they can get a better deal for their clients and these kids are willing to go and want to go, then they're going to go, and they can talk about it. The NIL agent can talk to Michigan and talk to the collectives, any other collective, and say, you know what, we're looking for a better opportunity. Now we've heard that it's kind of slim pickings with kickers right now, and that they've been struggling to find somebody initially. It's not like there's a James Turner from Saline who's at Louisville, right, and can be the missing piece to a national championship team. So you maybe have to do a little bit more convincing or pay a little bit more money. So we'll see if that, what they can do there, but they definitely need a kicker. Guys, we've seen how important that is, right? With Jake Moody, with James Turner last year, arguably one of the most important pieces that was kind of overlooked. Look what he did in that Ohio State game, guys. Unbelievable, right? So, and you have to have somebody that can make those in those tight games. That's going to be the key to beating the Texases and the Oregons and maybe Ohio State. So, but they are going to look for a wide receiver. They are going to look for another linebacker. They love their first two linebackers. Looks like Nikhai Hill-Green, who's in the portal now and has been on campus, could be that guy, assuming all credits transfer. Now he's a graduate and all that, so that should make it easier. Nikhai Hill-Green could be back for another stint at Michigan. And then you look at another corner. They want another corner to complement Will Johnson. You've got a couple young guys there, DJ Waller Jr., and you've got Jair Hill, but they'd still like one more proven guy. Josh Wallace would be like perfect, right? There's another one who played unbelievably well. Boy, was their success rate in the portal the last several years good. So that's what we're looking at right now. And hopefully those guys are out there in addition to maybe a quarterback. I think that what we've heard is that, well, if it's Alex Orji, then, we're hopeful he'll be another Jalen Milroe. But will they continue to look? Absolutely, and they should. And especially now, when people say it's not fair to these kids, it's free agency, guys, unlimited year to year. It's completely fair, and it's just the way it is.
Well, yeah, you'd ask the same kid that would say this is unfair. Say, do you have an NIL agent that has had conversations with another school's collective or that sort of thing? It's just the way it goes right now. So you got to make sure you get as much competition in those rooms as possible. And if guys can't handle that, then they will go somewhere else. And that's how college football is going at this point. I do want to say, too, the hit rate has been fantastic on these transfers. It does help that they have come in from, either a lower level or maybe, playing well on a worse team. They come in, they have great players around them. Like Josh Wallace wouldn't have been the corner he was last year without having Will Johnson on the other side and really good safety play and, great defensive line to help out the coverage unit on the back end. But that's what Michigan's become, and especially on defense. Like, I think you add a D-back or, like you said, like a Nikhai Hill-Green for depth at linebacker. Like, you're a few pieces away from kind of having a pretty complete unit there. On offense, wide receiver is going to be big. I mean, they tried to get some of those taller wide receivers back in December. They missed on a few. They weren't able to reel that guy in. But you said it, AB. The numbers are really low at wide receiver. I mean, look at the guys who are seniors. It's Peyton O'Leary, a former walk-on, who hasn't done anything to this point in his career in meaningful time. Christian Dixon, who switched to cornerback before spring ball. And I think, Carmelo English leaves. They realize there are snaps up for grabs here. He's back at wide receiver now, at least according to the roster. You have, Tyler Morris and Samaj Morgan have played a little bit, but I think you need a wide receiver, and that would help whoever the quarterback is too. Do you look at an offensive tackle? I know that's one of the positions where it costs, a lot of money to get a good offensive tackle. And that's interesting too about this. Why, in the past they've added, they haven't added as many D linemen, wide receivers, those types, offensive tackle. Those are commanding the most money outside of quarterback right now, it seems like, in the transfer portal. So are they able to do that with what they have NIL wise too?
Yeah, and I will say that they are, as of now, they are not looking for an offensive lineman. Now, if you get an elite one, guys, or an elite defensive lineman that wants to come, you take them as well. You know what? And you don't make any apologies for it. So we'll see. But and again, like you said, Clay, it takes money, and Michigan's still lagging. Some of these big programs when it comes to NIL, as we wrote today, they are going to be starting a tour with Sharon Moore and the trophy. I think Clayton Safey's going to be there with his $10,000 right up there in the front row. We'll ask him to get a couple of interviews.
My $110,000, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a big money deal, but they need more money too, fellas, and especially after next year, guys. If they want to reload and if they want to be competitive, then they're going to have to get some more NIL support.
Absolutely. I look at our other position group. One more that kind of strikes me as maybe needing just one more body there would be maybe edge. I think that Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart are going to be a terrific duo. And I really think that TJ Guy, is going to step into an opportunity that he's probably a little overdue for, given the fact that they've been so deep there the last few years. But the great Michigan defenses of, the last 2 years in particular had a fourth guy at the edge. And, maybe it's not something you fill in this window here. Think back a couple years ago, you add Iabioki 2 weeks before the season starts. I guess that, that was a bit of a special circumstance, but I think they could probably afford to add one more rotational pass rusher there. But other than that, it's not quite as deep as it was. But they were also uniquely deep the last few years. So at some point you gotta develop and cultivate your own guys too, which they have, and they've done a tremendous job of doing that. But that would be maybe one more spot I would look at. So any other thoughts on the transfer portal? Surprises, maybe departures from the program? Everything seems somewhat stable there.
Does Iabi have any eligibility left?
I believe he played in one of those all-star games, so he is in the NFL draft, so to speak.
He's probably going to get drafted. Yeah, good for him.
Right. Yeah. And wish him all the best, So, nope, I think we've covered it all. And now, guys, just get prepared. What are we, a day away from it's kind of like waiting for the stock market to open, right? On a big day, and the bell rings or crash. Exactly. I said open. I didn't say go up or down, but so let's see what's going to happen. It could go either way.
It's like that Wolf of Wall Street scene where McConaughey's like, 3, 2, 1. It's 9:30 a.m. and then like a half hour later, they all just stop in their tracks because it crashed. Yeah. And that's going to happen around the country at a bunch of different programs because it's going to be chaos. You see these national reporters hinting to it that like the things they've heard behind the scenes about what are going to happen. And you could have guys that already have signed NIL contracts with a collective at their school. But like you said earlier, Chris, well, their agents are still going to be working the phones or fielding calls from other schools. And hey, well, you're making $400,000 here. How about $750 over there? And that's going to be hard for some of these kids to turn down. So there are going to be a lot of fan bases upset, and you're going to lose guys quicker than you gain them because you can only enter for 2 weeks or 15 days, and then you can get guys throughout the summer and everything else. Josh Wallace, remember last year, joins the team in June. So everyone's going to be freaking out for 2 weeks. But then you're going to get kids too, and you're going to remember it goes both ways. It's a two-way street, but it's going to be chaos, I think.
All you can really hope for is that as the University of Michigan and as the defending national champion, that you are a team that benefits from the chaos as opposed to being affected by it. So we'll see, man. It's going to be interesting for sure. But let's turn our focus back to the spring game on Saturday. I want to just kind of go position by position here. Somewhat rapid fire, just things we're looking forward to seeing, things we've heard, whatever it is, fleeting thoughts at each position. Starting at running back, I think to me, it's pretty apparent that right now this is a two-horse, a two-guy backfield with Donovan Edwards, Kalel Mullings. That is going to be your 1A and 1B, at least to start out, based on everything that they've said, based on everything we've heard. I know you always kind of hear the Ben Hall stuff behind the scenes, and Jordan Marshall could certainly work his way into the mix when he gets here in the summer. But right now, I think it's those two guys. And really, normally, given that they're both somewhat known commodities, you might say, hey, you know what? Take it a little easy on Saturday. We don't need to see anything from you. But I'd like to see Donovan Edwards, with this, you put weight on. You want to see him run through contact a little bit better, see the vision improve. And then Kalel Mullings is just the volume. I think he's a guy that deserved more carries last year, and going to be interested to see if they're split up or how that works on Saturday.
Yeah, I've heard from practice observers that Kalel Mullings is just an absolute stud, right? And we've seen him run hard. I love the way he runs. I do. And so let's see what happens with him. And Donovan is what we've heard, right? Hopefully it's not all or nothing this year. You do need somebody that can move the chains, make those 2-yard gains like Blake Corum did. And that wasn't Donovan last year, with all due respect, Maybe he will be this year with with more weight on him. But I think Kalel Mullings is that guy that we saw last year. He wasn't getting stopped for 1 and 2 yard gains, it seemed like, very often when he carried the ball. So I'm anxious to see what Ben Hall can do as well. The spring game hero from last year, right, was probably the most impressive back, with the guys who played. So yeah, that's where we are there. And Max Bredesen as a lead blocker, whether it's H-back or whatever, anxious to hear him play football as well.
Did Caleb Downs know that Max Bredesen was still at Michigan when he decided to come to Ohio State? That's going to be, Max Bredesen's going to be, there's definitely going to be some pads popping. He's going to rattle a few fillings as the fullback. But yeah, no, everything you guys said about the running backs, I do think we'll probably see more Kalel Mullings than we see Donovan Edwards. Tony Alford talking, I think it was last week, about, how Kalel is still kind of becoming a running back. And I know he played there last year full time, but he said, just the ins and outs of the position and just being a running back, like identifying, as a running back. And I think that Kalel has been impressive in some of these spring games, and then obviously had some really nice runs last year. So will be good to see him. And my favorite thing about this may be, so it seems like they're split up based on the photo. Kalel will be on the maize team. Donovan will be on the blue team. But Donovan and Wink Martindale just feel like a duo, and Wink's the coach of the blue team. They just feel like a duo that was a match made in heaven. So I'm excited to see those two interact. And maybe if Donovan's out of the game after the first quarter or something like that, he'll help him coach, and we'll see how all that goes. But yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, there's the picture of Coach Wink there, head coach of the blue team.
Wide receiver, again, we talked about it earlier, only really 5 scholarship guys right now. You have a couple freshmen that will arrive this summer. In terms of guys, again, we're talking about this probably being an ugly, low-scoring, probably defensively skewed spring game. So I don't expect any of these guys really to put up gaudy numbers. I guess if you want to throw a guy who was a spring game star last year was Peyton O'Leary, but a lot of that had to do with Amorian Walker, who just didn't do anything in the spring game. Was getting blown by a former lacrosse player. I think Fred Moore, if I had to target one guy to look at, someone stepping into that Cornelius Johnson role, really he's kind of their only quote unquote big bodied wide receiver on the roster right now. I'd like to see, because he got on the field pretty early last year. I'd like to see continued development from him there, because I think he's stepping into a role that we thought maybe Darius Clemens would have had if he stuck around. But I think they're pretty impressed with him, and he was trusted enough by JJ McCarthy where we saw him running some routes, warming up for JJ at Pro Day. So I guess thoughts on guys at the wide receiver spot.
Yep. I'm thinking Fred Moore. They're talking about Jerry Jeudy, and the way he's running routes and things like that. That remains to be seen. But it's the big 3, right? I'm going to keep an eye on Fred Moore. He had a nice catch, I think, for 40 yards in the first game last year, in his first spring game, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, from Orgy. So they like him. I think Tyler Morris is going to be a really good receiver here, and I've thought that for a while. So, we'll see what happens with Samaj. Very confident kid, that Samaj Morgan. So, but yeah, I'm going to wait to see the portal and see who that big receiver is. When we talk about big bodied with Fred Moore, he still needs to fill out. He's 6'1", but he still needs to get bigger and stronger. So, but that's where I am with that group.
What cornerback's lunch is Peyton O'Leary going to eat? We'll see. It's going to be hard to judge those 2 spots because we're looking at corners other than Will Johnson. And again, how much will he play? Not sure. And then we're looking at wide receivers, like who's going to step up. If one guy does really well, then you start doubting, especially after what happened last year with the O'Leary Amorian Walker thing, you start doubting, is that real, or is the cornerback play just not up to par? So that'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, Fred Moore, Samaj Morgan, Tyler Morris, kind of those 3 will be interesting to see, maybe what leaps they've taken, and then the other guys who steps up.
Tight ends. I think we know what Colston Loveland is, the guy by far I'm most interested in seeing. And actually someone who I thought played pretty well in last year's spring game was Marlon Klein, who Loveland himself said he's the biggest tight end on the team. He's the strongest. He's the fastest, kind of a guy that seems like a bit of a freak. Maybe we see him pop up on a list from Bruce Feldman later this year. Who knows? But with a lot of snaps available at tight end, when you lose a guy like AJ Barter, I think Marlon Klein is the guy to me that probably has the most intrigue at that spot going into Saturday.
Yeah, I think Bredesen's going to step up in a pass catching role too, like maybe the Barner type role, right? Not just be a blocker. He can catch. We've seen him. I think we saw him with a 50-yarder last year in the spring game, or maybe it was 2 years ago, but a downfield grab. So, or maybe it was in one of the early season games. He had a real nice catch. So, but he can do it. Josh Beetham to the portal. He was playing good football. It's hard to lose a guy like that. People could say, oh, he's just a walk-on, but he was running with the ones and twos, and they were heaping a lot of praise on him, fellas. So Marlon Klein better be the football player that they hope he is, because you can have the great body and you can be a great athlete, but not be a great football player, especially if you haven't played a ton. I think that's where Marlon Klein is right now. So hopefully he continues to improve, but boy, he's a big kid. So that group, it wouldn't stun me at all either, right? If one became available in the portal and they said, okay, we didn't have the money for Josh, but you know what, maybe we can go out and get somebody in the portal as well. I wouldn't be stunned to see that, but right now those are the guys.
Yeah, excited to see Marlon Klein. Max Bredesen did call him a freak. So you had that from Colston Lovin. I even followed up with Colston Lovin, like, he's faster than you. And he said, yeah, he's faster in a straight line at least once he gets going. So Marlon Klein, yeah, want to see him. And Colston Loveland, I wonder how much we'll see of him during the spring game. But obviously he's going to be one of the big focal points of this offense.
Offensive line, I think it's a weird thing where you lose all 5 starters from last year, but then you look at a potential starting 5 of, let's just say left to right, Miles Hinton, Josh Preeb, Greg Crippen, Giovanni Elhadi, Andrew Gentry. If that's the 5, when we talked to Grant Newsom a few weeks ago, they seem pretty at peace with what they have there, and they're excited about what they have there. And, I know they like to have 10 guys ready to go. I don't know if they're quite that deep, but could they have 7, 8 guys? I think they could, and I'd like to see them flex some of that depth on Saturday. But again, it's going to be split squads, so this is maybe the group that is the hardest to evaluate when you talk about a spring game setting.
Yeah, exactly. And, especially, I would imagine Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham are going to be on opposite sides of the ball, in terms of on opposite teams, rather, in the spring game. And I hope that's the case so that nobody gets killed. Yeah, if they play. So, we saw Rashawn Benny. We'll talk about the defensive line, I guess, later. But, the big thing to me is the tackles. And, call me a skeptic when it comes to Miles Hinton at left tackle. 2 things there, right? I thought he struggled in pass pro at right tackle last year. Hopefully he's better. And, how much does he really love football? And maybe that's unfair, but this is a guy who has the body and the wherewithal to be an absolutely dominant offensive lineman. And Drake Nugent kind of alluded to it last year when he was at Stanford. He said, he could pick guys up and we would see him move guys 10 yards downfield and, do that every play. And you're a first round pick. And that's what you really have to get out of him. So, and then I'm interested to see what happens at center with Greg Crippen. I think he's solid. Is he going to be up there with a Drake Nugent? There were times last year where Drake Nugent, did just enough. You saw him on the ground a lot, guys. He held his block just long enough. In that respect, I think Greg Crippen, might be a little bit better in terms of holding blocks and things like that. But Nugent was pretty special when it came to calling things out and, knowing his assignments and things like that. So those are the positions I'll be watching. Hopefully some of these guys are healthy. I know Gio Elhadi's missed a little time this spring. So has Miles Hinton. So hopefully we can get a group out there at some point too, where we can see how they work together. But again, like you said, AB, they're going to be, breaking them up a little bit too.
Yeah, and Hinton's a guy who's been hurt a lot throughout his career, including last year at Michigan. So depth is going to be important, and this will be our chance to see some of those guys, behind those guys. And yeah, Greg Crippen, I'm all aboard the hype train, so I'm excited to see that. And hopefully, with all the film he's apparently been watching, he should be able to call things out on the field as well. He's waited his turn, but doesn't mean you're owed anything. You got to play well, and I think that it'll be good to see him, kind of in that role. I agree. Like, I don't necessarily love what they have at tackle compared to even the last couple of years when you kind of had guys who are more NFL guards playing tackle. You have maybe a true tackle now in Miles Hinton on the left side, but is he really going to perform better than some of those other guys? And that's a big question. I will say this, Sharon Moore's never been afraid, or at least over the last couple of years, to go and get guys out of the transfer portal on the offensive line if he feels like he wants more competition in that room or more depth or a better player or whatever it is. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that either. But, for now, and this is in really the offensive line being split in half is one of the reasons why I think this will be a low scoring game, because you do have a little bit more depth on the D line. O-line split up, a little bit more unsure about some of those guys, and they're going to be protecting the quarterbacks. And if KG and Mason do play, and I don't think I saw either of them in the blue team photo, so they might both be on the same team, which would be a little bit scary. Again, if they play, we know what these guys can do, so you don't want to get somebody hurt, knock on wood for everybody in this game. Number one key is to stay healthy, but it'll be interesting to see the battles in the trenches.
Well, speaking of those two guys up front, I think when you talk about the defensive line in Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, I think when we talk about a roster that has known commodities on it, that is probably the most known and the biggest advantage they'll have probably against any team they play this year is those four up front. So we won't spend too much time on them, but I guess when it comes to depth, when it comes to that second wave, are there any guys that either of you are targeting as keeping a close eye on in this game? I think for me, it's probably the aforementioned TJ Guy. We'll see if he rounds out into form as TJ Dude. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I like, he's shown flashes for years, frankly, and now it's his time. It's his time to step up, and he's out of the shadows. So he's the one, really. And, some of those other guys, Enoetta, what's he going to do? Has he taken that next step? Because they're going to need some of those guys, fellas, to do that. Take some of it. This is not the schedule where you're going to be playing, a half a game with your starting defensive line. And then, you're not going to be blowing that many people out this year. So it's a tougher schedule. They need some of those guys to emerge.
Yeah, Cam Brandt's my guy that I'm going to be watching. Excited about him. And, think he is that fourth edge that they need, along with TJ Guy, kind of on that second team. Is it as good as Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore were on the backup line as they were last year? No, I don't think many teams across the country are going to ever have something like that again. The depth and talent Michigan had on the defensive line last season. But yeah, Enoetta is a guy I think we'll probably see play inside. They've been experimenting with that, given some of the injuries there with Benny being out. As well. So yeah, we'll kind of see who steps up, because there are a lot of, proven commodities on that defensive line, but there are also a lot of snaps that other guys are going to have to play because they rotate there. I know it's not, Elston back there or Minter running the show right now, but I do feel like that, they're going to take a similar philosophy if they have the bodies to do that.
Linebacker, you lose a couple stalwarts in Junior Colson and Mike Barrett. But you're in a situation now where Jayshawn Barham has played a lot of football at Maryland. Ernest Hausman played a lot of football last year at Michigan, and obviously a ton at Nebraska as a freshman. You have a lot of confidence, those two. There's probably not going to be much of a drop-off there, which is kind of crazy to say. But the question with that group is depth. And you look at the scholarship chart on the screen. Jaden Hood is a senior. We kind of, he's stuck around and waited for an opportunity. Jimmy Rolder is a guy who has made some plays, but hasn't quite put it together yet. Micah Pollard's a guy that always comes up, but I think when you go to the linebacker position, it's the look that you give this group on Saturday is the depth, because it sounds like there's a pretty notable and familiar name out there that might be re-entering this room before too long.
Yeah, if Nikhil Green comes back, that helps a lot as your third guy. Even then, though, if you only have three, Jimmy Rolder needs to step up flat out. So at least one more guy needs to step up, and that's probably why they are looking in the portal for one other guy as well. So I do like the big two. I think they're extremely athletic, right? But again, it comes back to depth. And if those guys can't, if those guys have to play too many snaps, then by the end of the year, they're going to be gassed. You remember what Junior Colson said a couple of years ago about the TCU game, right? He was pretty much spent. So hopefully somebody emerges. I'd really like to see Jaden Hood come out of nowhere and maybe be that guy. We heard that last year. It didn't really materialize. So, but I am anxious to see Jayshawn Barham and what he can do. I've heard great things.
Yeah, I think he and Ernest Hausman are going to be tracking some dudes down. You're looking at vanilla playbook on offense. You're looking at, probably some basic concepts on defense, and that allows linebackers to just play fast and make some big plays. So again, those are two guys that they're in the camp of. We'll see how much they play on Saturday at least, but I feel comfortable about those two guys as you go into the year. build the depth? Can Rolder stay healthy? Is Micah Pollard going to take that step? Jaden Hood, how reliable is he? And does Nikai Hill-Green or somebody else join the group?
Cornerbacks, again, Will Johnson, as far as I'm concerned, put him in the hyperbaric chamber, put him on ice, unfreeze him like the Winter Soldier week 2 against Texas. Say the magic words you need to say to get him to be his normal vintage self. No questions about him at all. It's that other side of him. Right now it seems like a battle led by 2 sophomores in Jair Hill and DJ Waller, who each have things to like in their own respect. But like we talked about earlier, maybe room to add a guy in the portal. I think that Saturday, and again, Saturday, what we see Saturday, they have 15 or 13, 14, however many practices before that to, a film on these guys. So what we see one game in a vacuum, maybe we shouldn't put a ton of stock in, but I'm going to be, of all these position battles on the roster, I think those 2 are pretty fascinating because both guys are young and there's multi-year trajectory here as opposed to just grabbing a stopgap.
Right, and they've got to, Jair need to do mature a little bit. It sounds like he has. DJ Waller, not the speediest guy, right, but he's a strider. He's been banged up a little bit this spring as well, from what we understand. So hopefully get him back out there and see what these guys can do. So, but that's going to be the big question mark, right? Now, the good news is you've got a guy on the other side that's locking down half the field, right? And Will Johnson, who I think has a chance to be one of the best who's ever played here and has kind of proven it already, that he's on that trajectory. So excited about him and very interested to see which one of those young guys steps up. So, one more body isn't going to hurt guys if they go to the portal for sure and provide some. Remember, Josh Wallace kind of came out of nowhere last year. We were all, who's that next guy going to be? And it turned out to be Josh. So hopefully they can find somebody else and hopefully they have enough there to so that it won't be a weakness on this football team.
We haven't seen Jair Hill play football since the Nebraska game last year when they allowed that huge run at the end of the game, like 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was. Didn't play the rest of the year. So, he's a guy that impressed during the spring game a year ago, played a little bit kind of with the 2s early on last season before he fell off. But DJ Waller, is Jaden McBurrows probably going to play in the slot and outside. What does he show as now a 4th-year player, technically a senior, redshirt junior? So those guys and then, Zeke Berry is probably who I'm most excited to see in the defensive back room because you can call him a safety corner, whatever at the nickel spot, moving between safety and nickel. Lamar Morgan said he could be the potential Mikey Sainristil replacement. So he's a great athlete, and you need somebody at that position to be able to do that, come up, make hits, but also cover on the back end. And we'll see what he can do in that regard on Saturday.
We moved to safety. Obviously, Rod Moore out with a knee injury, we presume, for the season. So that puts more weight on Makari Page and Quentin Johnson. And I simply say this as who I'm watching. 2 names, Zeke Berry, Brandon Hillman, both guys they like a lot. 2 young guys that have an opportunity now. We talk about how those edge guys, in that 4-man rotation, all kind of played a starter's amount of snaps last year. Same applies at safety to a certain extent. So there's a lot of opportunity there for both of those guys.
If you would have told me before last year that Quentin Johnson was going to be one of the key guys in 2024 coming back that you were going to be relying on, I'd have been nervous. Now I'm not. I think the guy's played a lot of football. He's played great football here and has played his best football later in his career. So love him back there and sounds like he's playing extremely well. If you look just at the depth chart, guys, 1 safety in each class there, 1 scholarship safety in each class, it looks like, they're going to need some help there as well eventually. But to me, there's enough there if they stay healthy that can be really good. And they feel that way too. They've, even without Rod Moore, they've said, we feel really, really good about this room. So that makes me feel good as long as they stay healthy. And again, it's going to come down to depth.
Yeah. One safety in each class, but if Rod Moore is hurt and if Zeke Berry's playing your nickel for you,
right,
that is an important position. You're really thin. Jacob Oden looks good, as a safety, but it's tough as a true freshman. Certainly we've seen that, hell, even Zeke Berry and Keon Sabb to a lesser extent, they weren't playable their first year really. And Zeke Berry hasn't played a significant role, and now he's a junior. So he still, had a lot to prove his first couple of years. So yeah, Quentin Johnson was a massive add. The fact that he didn't somehow get a combine invite and that's probably, by nature of him not playing as much last year, consistently throughout the season, was huge because he probably would have accepted it, and he probably would have been ineligible to return when he did in early March. So that was massive. And now, you try to build the depth, and I think those are a lot of the guys we'll be watching on Saturday, is the guys behind those two, Makari and Quinton.
All right, we round out with special teams. Again, I don't know anyone's here. If you've stuck around this long, I don't know if you're here for long snapper talk, punting talk, or whatever it is. But obviously, with what we talked about earlier, the kicker spot is, provides the most intrigue. Adam Samaha, obviously, they're one scholarship guy there for now. A couple others on the roster. I know Hudson Hollenbeck is one. The other names are escaping me because reasons. Any other thoughts on special teams? And, could we even see anything from these guys on Saturday to inspire?
Yeah, make all your kicks.
Reaction.
Make all your kicks in front of 40,000 people or however many are going to be there, right? And do it live, and then then maybe that will inspire some confidence and say, okay, maybe they don't, if they don't get somebody in the portal, maybe you'll be the guy. So Tommy Doman, we know, can kick a little bit as well, but doesn't like to do it, and it's not his forte. Love the fact that he's back as a punter. William Wagner coming back helps, but kicker's huge, and let's see what these guys do on Saturday. But I think they're definitely going to need to go to the portal, and hopefully they can find somebody.
Yeah, long snapper talk, punter talk. How about holder talk? Tommy Doman was the holder last year, but I assume he wasn't the holder, though, for Samaha. That was Hudson Hollenbeck. So I assume we're going to see Doman and Samaha battle this thing out and then see if, they add another name in the portal.
All right. Well, that's everything. Any other thoughts on, spring camp? I know this is the week they kind of break off and practice with their teams, if I'm not mistaken. So really the bulk of the work is done for this spring camp. Is there anything that we've heard that we haven't necessarily touched on?
Nope. I think we've covered it all, and I'm excited to see it, fellas. Hopefully the day is as nice as it looks like it's going to be, and can't wait to see you guys up there.
All right. We love it. Clayton and I will be back later this week to do our annual spring game draft. I believe in terms of public perception, this is the rubber match right now. This will be the third one for us. So always exciting to do that. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on that platform. Also, subscribe wherever you get your podcast for the audio edition. We know you guys have commutes and you walk your dogs and you can't always be attached to video, so we are available on those platforms as well. Again, remember, too, to head on over to the WolverineOnDemand.com to get your copy of the national title edition of our magazine. You can use promo code UM1 to get 2 months of access over at the Wolverine for $1 if you are a YouTube viewer. So special offer for you guys as well on that front. For Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. We will talk to you again next time.